There's a particular kind of pain that doesn't announce itself with drama or tears. It moves through you like a ghost, settling into your bones, your breath, the way you hold your coffee cup in the morning. You wake up, and for just a second you forget. Then you remember, and the weight returns. If you've ever loved someone so deeply that their absence felt like losing a limb you didn't know you had, you understand what I'm talking about. But here's what most people won't tell you. In a twin flame separation, the empath doesn't just lose the other person, they lose the mirror that showed them who they were becoming. Carl Jung spent his life exploring the hidden chambers of the human psyche, and one of his most profound observations was this: we don't just love people, we love what they awaken in us. The empath, in particular, doesn't love with the surface mind. They love with their entire nervous system, their intuition, their soul's memory. When a twin flame enters their life, it's not a casual encounter. It's recognition. It's the universe saying, here is someone who will show you every unhealed part of yourself. And that's beautiful. Until it isn't. Because the empath gives in a way most people don't understand. They don't just offer affection or time. They offer their energy, their emotional bandwidth, their very essence. They become a container for the other person's pain, their unspoken fears, their shadow. And they do this willingly, even joyfully, because it feels like purpose. It feels like love. But when the separation comes, and it almost always does, the empath is left holding all of that energy with nowhere to put it. They've poured themselves out, and now they're standing in an empty room, echoing. Jung spoke about the concept of projection, how we cast parts of ourselves onto others and then fall in love with our own reflection. But for the empath, it's more complex. They're not just projecting, they're absorbing. They're feeling the other person's emotions as if they were their own. They're carrying wounds that don't even belong to them. So when the twin flame walks away, the empath doesn't just grieve the relationship, they grieve every version of themselves they sacrificed to keep that connection alive. And here's the cruel irony. The more you give, the more you feel the absence. The more you loved, the deeper the void. It's not weakness. It's the price of feeling everything so profoundly that even silence becomes a language. Maybe you felt this. Maybe you're feeling it right now. That specific ache that lives just beneath your ribs, the one that wakes you at 3 in the morning with questions that have no answers. Why did they leave? What did I do wrong? Will I ever feel whole again? And the hardest question of all, how do I stop loving someone who's already gone? If you've ever felt like your love was too much for someone to hold, I'd love to hear your story. What's the one thing you wish you could say to the person who walked away? Share it below, even if it's just for yourself. Let's go deeper into what's actually happening beneath the surface, because this isn't just about heartbreak. This is about the architecture of your soul. Jung believed that every person we meet, especially those who shake us to our core, is a messenger from our unconscious. They arrive to reveal something we couldn't see on our own. The twin flame? They're not just a messenger. They're a key. They unlock rooms inside you that have been sealed for lifetimes. The empath walks into this connection already wired differently. From childhood, they learned to read the room before they could read a book. They felt their mother's sadness before she spoke it. They carried their father's anger in their small shoulders. They became translators of unspoken pain. And somewhere along the way, they confused this ability with their identity. Being needed became being loved. Fixing others became proof of worth. So when the twin flame appears, something ancient inside the empath recognizes them. Not because they're perfect, but because they're familiar. The twin flame often carries the same wounds the empath has spent their entire life trying to heal in others. It's the unavailable parent, the emotionally distant sibling, the first love who couldn't stay. The pattern repeats, but this time it feels different. This time, it feels destined. This time, the empath believes they can finally get it right. Jung called this repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to recreate painful dynamics in hopes of resolving them. But here's the trap. The empath enters this dynamic with their entire heart open, while the twin flame, often wounded in different ways, enters with walls built high. The empath sees potential. The twin flame sees threat. The empath feels connection. The twin flame feels consumed. And so begins the dance. The empath gives more, hoping to prove their love is safe, that they won't abandon, that they can be trusted. But the more they give, the more the twin flame retreats. It's not cruelty. It's survival. The twin flame is often terrified of the very intimacy they crave. They're running from their own reflection. But the empath doesn't understand this. They only feel the rejection. They only see the distance. And they blame themselves. This is where the pain deepens. Because the empath doesn't just lose the relationship. They lose their sense of identity. If I'm the one who always heals, who always loves enough, who always makes it work, and this time it didn't work, then who am I? The separation becomes an existential crisis, not just a romantic one. You start questioning everything. Your intuition, which always felt like your superpower, now feels like a liar. You saw the connection. You felt it. How could you be so wrong? You replay every conversation, every moment, searching for the point where it all fell apart. You become an archaeologist of your own heartbreak, digging through the ruins, looking for answers that will never satisfy you. Because the real question isn't why they left. The real question is, why did I stay so long after they were already gone? There's a concept in Jungian psychology called the wounded healer. It's the idea that those who have suffered the most are often the ones called to heal others. The empath embodies this archetype perfectly. But here's what nobody tells you about being the wounded healer. You can become so good at tending to other people's pain that you forget you're bleeding too. In the twin flame dynamic, the empath often takes on the role of the healer unconsciously. They see the wounded child in their partner, the parts that were never loved correctly, the trauma that was never processed, and something in them says, I can help. I can be the one who finally loves them the way they needed to be loved. This isn't ego. This is compassion gone sideways. This is the empath's own unloved child trying to save itself through saving another. Jung understood that we're all walking around with a shadow, the parts of ourselves we've rejected, denied, or buried. The twin flame relationship forces both people to confront their shadows, but they do it at different speeds. The empath, already accustomed to inner work, to feeling their feelings, to sitting with discomfort, is ready to face the darkness. They're ready to transform, but the twin flame often isn't. They're still running, and this creates an unbearable tension. The empath keeps waiting for the moment when their partner will finally wake up, finally do the work, finally meet them in that deep place. But that moment doesn't come, or it comes too late, or it comes in small glimpses that feel like hope, but never quite solidify into real change. And the empath, ever the believer in potential, keeps holding space for a transformation that isn't theirs to create. This is the loneliest feeling in the world, to love someone so completely, to see them so clearly, and to know that you're seeing them doesn't change anything. To realize that love, no matter how pure, no matter how deep, cannot force someone to heal, cannot force someone to stay, cannot force someone to choose you the way you've chosen them. The separation, when it finally comes, feels less like an ending and more like a slow unraveling. Because the empath has been separating for a long time already. Every time they minimize their needs, every time they explained away red flags, every time they convinced themselves that things would be different, better, closer if they just loved a little harder. The physical separation is just the body finally catching up to what the soul already knew. And here's the part that hurts the most. The empath often feels guilty for the separation, even when they didn't initiate it. They replay the relationship, cataloging their mistakes, convinced that if they had been more patient, more understanding, more enlightened, the outcome would have been different. They turn their pain inward, which is what empaths do best. They become their own harshest judge. But what if the separation wasn't a failure? What if it was the thing that had to happen for you to finally come home to yourself? Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But here's what he didn't say. Sometimes the transformation requires separation. Sometimes the alchemy happens in the absence, not the presence. The empath, in their natural state, is incredibly porous. They absorb everything: emotions, energies, unspoken tensions, the mood of a room, the sadness in a stranger's eyes. This gift, this sensitivity, is also their greatest vulnerability. Because when they love someone deeply, they don't just connect with that person. They merge. The boundaries between self and other become blurred, then non-existent. They start to feel what the other person feels, want what the other person wants, hurt when the other person hurts. They lose themselves in the process of loving. And in a twin flame connection, this merging feels sacred. It feels like union. It feels like coming home, but it's actually the opposite. It's abandoning home. It's leaving yourself behind to live in someone else's emotional landscape. And you don't even realize you're doing it until they're gone and you're standing there, unsure of who you are without them. This is why the separation hurts the empath more, because they didn't just lose a person. They lost the version of themselves they created to fit into that relationship. They lost the daily rituals, the shared dreams, the future they built in their mind. They lost their purpose, because loving that person had become their purpose. And now there's just space. Vast, empty, terrifying space. But here's the paradox. That space is exactly what you need. That space is where the real healing begins. Jung spoke extensively about individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, distinct from the collective, from your conditioning, from the roles you've played. For the empath, individuation requires separation. It requires learning that loving someone and losing yourself in them are not the same thing. It requires building boundaries that don't feel like walls. It requires saying no without guilt, choosing yourself without apology. The twin flame separation, as agonizing as it is, becomes an initiation. It's the universe saying, "You've spent your whole life learning to feel other people's pain. Now it's time to feel your own. You've spent your whole life being the lighthouse for everyone else. Now it's time to find your way home." And you resist this. Of course you resist this, because going inward feels like drowning at first. All that pain you've been avoiding, all those needs you suppressed, all those parts of yourself you abandoned to keep the peace, they're all waiting for you in that inner space. And it's overwhelming. It's easier to focus on the other person, to wonder what they're doing, if they miss you, if they regret leaving. It's easier to keep the focus external. But what if just for a moment you asked yourself, what part of me did I abandon to keep that relationship alive? What did I betray in myself? Think about it. You don't have to share, but notice what comes up. There's a dream that empaths have, sometimes literally, sometimes as a waking fantasy. They're standing at the edge of an ocean, watching someone they love swim further and further away. They call out, they wave, they even wade into the water, but the person keeps swimming. And the empath has to make a choice. Keep swimming after them and risk drowning, or turn back to shore and let them go. In Jungian terms, this dream is about the tension between the ego and the self. The ego wants to control, to fix, to make things work out the way it imagines they should. The self, the deeper wisdom within you, knows that some things must be surrendered. Some people must be released. Some connections, no matter how profound, are meant to teach rather than last. But the empath's ego is strong in a particular way. It's not the ego of arrogance or superiority. It's the ego of belief. The belief that love conquers all. The belief that if you just understand someone deeply enough, patient enough, compassionate enough, they'll heal, they'll stay, they'll choose you. And when this belief is shattered, it's not just the relationship that falls apart. It's your entire worldview. You believed in the power of love. You believed in soul connections. You believed that when two people are meant to be together, the universe conspires to make it happen. And now you're left wondering if any of that was real, if the connection was in your head, if you imagined the whole thing. This is the cognitive dissonance that haunts empaths after twin flame separation. The confusion between what you felt and what actually was. Jung would say both are true. The connection was real, and it wasn't what you thought it was. It was real in the sense that it triggered profound transformation in you. It was real in the sense that it brought your shadow to the surface. It was real in the sense that it showed you exactly where you abandoned yourself for love. But it wasn't real in the way you wanted it to be. It wasn't the fairy tale. It wasn't the forever. It was the catalyst. This distinction is crucial because it allows you to honor the experience without clinging to the person. You can acknowledge that something sacred happened without needing it to continue. You can grieve what you've lost without diminishing what you've gained. And what you've gained, even though it doesn't feel like a gain right now, is profound self-knowledge. You've learned how it feels to lose yourself, and that means you now have the opportunity to find yourself. You've learned what it's like to prioritize someone else's needs over your own. And that means you can now practice prioritizing yourself. You've learned the pain of unrequited depth, and that means you can now choose people who meet you where you are. The empath's journey after twin flame separation isn't about getting over someone. It's about getting back to someone. yourself. The version of you that existed before you learned to contort yourself to fit into someone else's life. Let's talk about something that nobody wants to admit. Sometimes the empath becomes addicted to the pain, not because they're masochistic, but because the pain is proof of the depth. If it hurts this much, it must have been real. If I'm suffering this intensely, it must have meant something. The pain becomes a way of honoring the connection, of keeping the person close even when they're gone. Jung understood this mechanism. He called it the complex, a constellation of emotions, memories, and beliefs that form around a central wound. The twin flame becomes a complex in the empath's psyche. Every song reminds you of them. Every place holds a memory. Every quiet moment is filled with their absence. You're not just missing a person. You're caught in an emotional pattern that has its own life, its own gravity, pulling you back again and again. And here's where it gets complicated. Part of you doesn't want to let go. Because letting go means accepting that it's truly over. Letting go means facing the emptiness. Letting go means rebuilding your life without the fantasy of reunion. So you hold on. You check their social media. You reread old messages. You analyze the last conversation for hidden meanings. You keep the wound open because closing it feels like betrayal. But this isn't love. This is attachment. And Jung made a crucial distinction between the two. Love is spacious. Love allows for freedom, for change, for growth. Attachment is constrictive. Attachment needs the other person to be a certain way, to fulfill a certain role, to complete you. Attachment says, I cannot be whole without you. Love says, I am whole, and I choose to share that wholeness with you. The empath, in their hurt, often confuses the two. They believe their inability to let go is evidence of true love, but it's actually evidence of an unhealed wound that predates the twin flame entirely. It's the wound of the child who wasn't seen, who wasn't chosen, who wasn't enough. The twin flame separation doesn't create this wound. It rips off the bandage you've been wearing for decades. And this is the gift, though it doesn't feel like one. This is the opportunity, because for the first time, you're being forced to look at the wound directly. You can't fix it by fixing someone else. You can't heal it by being loved by someone else. You can only heal it by turning toward yourself with the same compassion you so freely give to others. This means sitting with the discomfort. This means feeling the grief without trying to bypass it with spiritual platitudes or positive thinking. This means acknowledging that yes, it hurts. Yes, you miss them. Yes, you wish things were different. And also, you are still here. You are still breathing. You are still capable of joy, even if it feels impossible right now. Here's a question that might sting a little. What if you gave yourself the same devotion you gave them? What if you loved yourself with that same intensity? What would change? Let me know in the comments if this lands for you. There's a phase in the alchemical process that Jung was fascinated by called the nigredo, the blackening. It's the stage where everything breaks down, where the false self dissolves, where you're left in the dark with nothing familiar to hold on to. If you're in the aftermath of twin flame separation, you're in the nigredo, and it feels like death because, in a way, it is. The death of who you thought you were, the death of the story you told yourself about love, the death of the future you imagined. But Jung knew something that most people miss. The nigredo isn't the end. It's the necessary beginning. You can't become gold without first being broken down into your base elements. You can't transform without first dissolving. And the empath, with their deep capacity for feeling, experiences this dissolution more intensely than most. You might feel like you're going crazy. One moment you're angry, the next you're longing, then you're numb, then you're sobbing in the grocery store because you saw their favorite cereal. This isn't instability. This is integration. This is your psyche processing layers of pain, conditioning, and unmet needs all at once. It's messy. It's nonlinear. It's supposed to be. What you're actually doing, whether you realize it or not, is reclaiming your projections. Remember earlier when we talked about how the twin flame becomes a mirror? Now that mirror is shattered, and you're left holding the pieces. But those pieces aren't reflections of them. They're reflections of you. Every quality you loved in them, every potential you saw, every depth you recognized, that was yours all along. You were seeing yourself in them. You were loving your own unlived life through them. This is the brutal truth. The twin flame didn't complete you. They showed you what was already within you, waiting to be lived. The creativity you admired in them? It's your unexpressed creativity. The freedom they embodied? It's your caged freedom. The emotional depth you felt when you were with them? It's your own depth that you've been too afraid to fully inhabit. So the real work now isn't about getting them back. It's about getting yourself back. It's about embodying all those qualities you projected onto them. It's about becoming so fully yourself that you no longer need another person to feel complete. And this is terrifying for the empath because it means taking up space. It means having needs and expressing them. It means setting boundaries and keeping them. It means saying, "This is who I am, and I'm no longer available to shrink myself to make others comfortable." It means choosing yourself first, which feels selfish when you've spent your entire life believing that your worth comes from how much you give to others. But here's the truth that Jung spent his life trying to convey. Individuation, becoming fully yourself, isn't selfish. It's sacred. It's the entire purpose of being human. You weren't put on this earth to lose yourself in another person. You were put here to discover yourself, to integrate your shadow, to make conscious what was unconscious, to become whole. The twin flame separation is the catalyst for this becoming. It's painful because all transformation is painful. Caterpillars don't become butterflies peacefully. They dissolve completely in the cocoon. They turn to liquid. They lose all form. And then, slowly, something new emerges. You are in the cocoon right now. You are the liquid. You are formless. And every day you wake up and choose to keep going, to keep feeling, to keep breathing through the pain. You are participating in your own transformation. You are becoming the person you were always meant to be. If you've stayed with me this far, I want to acknowledge something. You're stronger than you think you are. The fact that you're here seeking understanding, looking for meaning in your pain, shows that you're not running. You're facing this. And that takes immense courage. The empath's journey through twin flame separation doesn't end with closure. It doesn't end with answers. It doesn't even end with forgiveness, though that may come. It ends with reclamation. It ends with you standing in the fullness of who you are, no longer apologizing for your depth, your sensitivity, your capacity to feel. It ends with you understanding that you are not too much. You were just with someone who couldn't hold all of you. Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And this is your choice point. You can let this separation define you, make you smaller, more guarded, less trusting. Or you can let it refine you. You can take everything you've learned about yourself, every shadow you've faced, every wound you've tended, and you can use it to build a life that doesn't require another person's validation to feel meaningful. This doesn't mean you'll never love again. It means you'll love differently. You'll love from wholeness instead of lack. You'll love with boundaries instead of boundless giving. You'll love someone who can meet you in your depth instead of running from it. And most importantly, you'll love yourself first, so completely that no one's leaving can ever devastate you the way this did. The pain you're feeling right now is not permanent. I know it feels like it is. I know it feels like you'll carry this ache forever. But pain, when fully felt and not resisted, transforms. It becomes wisdom. It becomes compassion. It becomes the very thing that allows you to help others who are walking this same dark path. You are not broken. You are breaking open. And what's emerging from this breaking is the truest version of yourself you've ever been. The version that doesn't need to fix anyone. The version that knows their worth isn't determined by who stays or leaves. The version that can sit in the fire and not burn up. So if you're in the middle of this pain right now, if you're reading this with tears in your eyes or that familiar ache in your chest, I want you to know, you're going to be okay. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. And on the other side of this, you'll look back and understand why it had to happen this way. Why the separation was actually the greatest gift, even though it came wrapped in the cruelest packaging. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your attention. If this resonated with you, if you felt seen in these words, I would be so grateful if you'd share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you found value in this, consider subscribing so we can continue this journey of healing and self-discovery together. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is remind each other that we're not alone in this. You are loved, you are seen, and you are so much more than this moment of pain.